What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here, joined by Andy Herman, ready to talk some football. Andy, we have the off-season in the rear-view mirror finally. How's the off-season treated you, sir?
It's been great. Obviously, we are now post mini camp and just waiting for training camp to get here. This is the one true sort of dead period on the Packers calendar, on the NFL calendar. So we get to try to fill it as best as we can. But no, it's been great so far. I've enjoyed obviously going through the free agents that Green Bay did sign, the ones they potentially could have signed, the draft picks, and now we've opened all the presents. And now it's just, I think we're dying to get to training camp and actually seeing this out on the field a little bit more.
Yeah, get some real actual football being played. I mean, it was interesting to me, and I would love to get your take on this as someone who has been out there each and every day for these mini camp and OTA practices. Has it been noticeable as far as, I'm not going to say the lack of contact or what have you, because that's the same each and every offseason, but it does feel like from afar that there are noticeably fewer competitive periods this offseason and noticeably less kind of team stuff. And that doesn't mean, I know they're doing the kind of 2-minute stuff at the end of practice, real competitive periods there, but it sure feels like that, coupled with Matt LaFleur himself talking a lot about how, man, we got to get pads on. Like, this is very, very limited. It's like, I don't remember him kind of highlighting that aspect of the offseason as much as he has this year.
I totally agree with you. And it started with rookie minicamp, which in the past has been some very competitive rookie minicamp periods. I remember just last year going out and they're doing not like team drills, but they're going out and like putting players in positions, even in sort of like a walkthrough type phase. And I remember it because Evan Williams was like communicating stuff out there. I'm like, how the heck does Evan Williams know this stuff already? Right. And it's like, it was really impressive. And I remember this stuff. And in the past, I remember competitive periods because players were going against each other. And I'm like, oh, this is fun. We get to see a first round wide receiver, not a first round wide receiver, because that never happened, obviously, but you get my point, like a draft pick wide receiver versus a draft pick corner. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. And this, I remember getting the email this year that there was only going to be one rookie mini camp open to the media. I'm like, oh, great. They're cutting more back. And it's not, now we're only going to get one that's open to the media instead of both of them. And then you get to the rookie mini camp this year and you're like, oh, I see why, because this entire thing could have been an email, because it was literally like, we got to see Taylor Algersma go through sort of a workout to see if they wanted to bring him in or not. Everything else was literally just like an orientation, and there was nothing going on. They kind of showed him how to go through some of like the warm-up drills and things like that. Even that, I remember there was a specific rookie who went a little bit too fast in the warm-up drill, and Matt LaFleur immediately got after him. Like, what are we doing here? Why are you doing this? This is supposed to be like a walkthrough pace. So that was a nothing completely. So that was a change. And then we get into mini camp and OTAs. And again, to your point, there's usually more competitive periods. And we heard in the past that Matt hates 7-on-7s.
7 stuff,
well,
right?
Apparently, that is no longer the case, because he ran a ton of 7-on-7s. Those were the faster paced ones. Again, no offensive line, no defensive line in those situations. We saw a lot of those. Those were usually, again, the ones that had a little bit more pace to it. But the other team drills outside of the 2-minute drill, the 2-minute drill was the only one that we saw that actually was like a live team activity. Even that, of course, had its rules of engagement, and the offensive line and defensive line are basically just kind of going through the motions up front. But outside of that, we saw a lot of their team activities either be a true walkthrough or like 60-65% pace. And I think what he's really trying to do, of course, is get all of the mental reps. Well, try not to, because, Aaron, when they get into true walkthroughs, like the entire practice just dies, right? Like there's no energy, there's no anything, there's no sizzle. It's just everyone's just kind of going through, literally walking through the motions of stuff. And you get those mental reps, which is fine, but you lose all that energy of practice. So I think him trying to go like 60-65% is trying to keep it a little bit up tempo and not lose all of that momentum and that energy, but also making it so that it's mental reps and guys aren't getting hurt out there. So I think that's what he's going for, but it's definitely a change of pace from what we've seen in the past.
You mentioned Air Canada there, quarterback number 4. Do you think this is going to be a true competition come camp? I mean, I haven't seen the young man throw, but from everything I've heard, like he's got a legit arm. And, it's not like Sean Clifford has lit the world up this kind of last 2 years. Do you think there's a decent chance that there's maybe a changing of the guard at quarterback 3?
I really do. And the reason why is, first of all, we've seen already that they've been willing to release Sean Clifford because they did so last year. We saw that no team was willing to pick him up because no team did. And he was just a practice squad quarterback this past year. And it almost felt like a default decision, even in that, because they couldn't go into week one with Malik Willis just being there like, 2 days before, even though he ended up being the backup anyway. But it felt like sort of that went into the decision. And it just looks to me that if you're talking, again, upside is a vague word, but if you're looking at who just has a little bit more talent to him, I would say Elgersma is probably the one. And you are in a position where QB1 is entrenched. QB2 is extremely entrenched. There's no battle for either of those spots. So with QB3, you do kind of have the benefit of being able to kind of play around with it a little bit more and going with the guy that maybe is a little bit more exciting and enticing. We did not get to see much of Elgersma in a true, even 7-on-7 or we didn't see him in a 2-minute drill. It was really just the last 7-on-7 period that was on the mini camp on the Thursday, the final Thursday of practice. He got 2 reps, Aaron. And in those 2 reps, I kid you not, he rips an absolute bullet in the middle of the field to Cornelius Johnson for a touchdown. And then Paul Brettel and I standing next to each other, both are like, "Ooh, that thing was humming a little bit." And then on the next play, he drops back to pass, scan, and again, 7-on-7. So take whatever, you want with it. But literally gets the snap, looks left, looks middle, looks right, goes through his progression, gets to the right, realizes that he's got a millisecond to fit a ball in before Cornelius Johnson runs out of space on the sideline. Another laser right in stride. And just the fact that he was calm in the pocket, footwork looked good, goes through his progression, finds Johnson again, and then rips another one to him. It was just the only 2 plays that we got, but they were 2 very impressive plays.
There you go. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Let's get out there, let's compete, and let's see what the kid has. I think I'm with you. It feels logical that would be the way they would go at 3, as far as, okay, what you've got with Sean Clifford, right? There's very little mystery there, but there is a potential with Air Canada. I'm with him.
I like Air Canada, excited. By the way. Kudos to you on that.
I'm trying to make it happen. We'll see. For all I know, it'll stick, and then he'll get cut, and that'll be that.
Hey, we had a laser show, and
we had laser show for years.
It possibly could. So Air Canada, right there with you. I'm good for it.
I'm making it happen. Let's talk about the offensive line and the fact that it's so fascinating to me how jumbled up it is, as far as conceptually thinking, okay, this is your quote unquote best 5, right? And you're going to go left to right, and you're going to think, okay, Rasheed Walker is supposedly in a battle with Jordan Morgan, but man, as well as he's played the last 2 years, I think Jordan Morgan's really got to shine in training camp to make that a going concern. And then, of course, I think the one guy you're like, okay, yeah, there's zero doubt here is Aaron Banks at left guard because of what they paid him in free agency, right? But then you get to center, and I know it's Elton Jenkins and everything going on there, but I mean, Elton Jenkins didn't participate in a single snap in the offseason. And you can't sit here and tell me late June going into early July that it's lock solid that he's going to be fine, good to go, under contract, everything's resolved by the time we get there to Radnitsky Field on July 23rd. That, to me, is a fulcrum point here, this kind of next 3 weeks, so to speak, where the rubber's really going to meet the road as far as what the Packers are willing to do to get him in the fold, because I don't think Elton's coming back unless he has some new guaranteed money.
There's got to be something, and I don't know what that thing is. I don't know if they kick him some incentives or some bonus money or some guarantees or whatever that thing is. And I think, to be fair, he just really doesn't want to end up in the exact same situation that Jair has been in this entire offseason, where Elton's got $20 million that he can earn if he's on the team next year, but it's all non-guaranteed. And the Packers have all of the cards in their favor. They hold, I know we don't like the leverage word anymore after the whole Rodgers situation, but
it's
they
true,
hold all the leverage in that situation, because they can, again, trade him, release him, and get rid of that entire $20 million. And Elton's left just in the lurch until they figure out what they want to do. I'm sure he doesn't want to do that. So I'm sure he would love some of that guarantee next year. Green Bay, I'm sure, does not want to set any precedent with a player who has 2 years left on their deal of renegotiating that contract either. So that's, I think, the messiness of this. Hopefully they can get something done, but I'm with you. If you get to the first week of training camp and second week of training camp, and this thing continues to linger on, I mean, that becomes more troublesome, because to me, the whole thing all along was like, I think Elton can make that seamless transition into center if he has a full mini camp and training camp to get back in the swing of playing center and working with Jordan and everything like that. I'm not super upset or like, worried about him missing mini camp and OTA. But the more and more that camp goes on and you miss that, well, that transition, I think it's a little bit tougher and a little bit more unique as time goes on. So then I wonder, we saw Jacob Monk in mini camp, kind of patrol that spot.
Question. This is my question right here.
Sean Ryan then, because they're like, all right, now we have to sort of get ready more for the season. And if there is some concern about Elton not being there, it's not just a mini camp where we can kind of put players where we ideally would like them. Now we have to try to get the best 5 out there. And is that then Sean Ryan at center with Jordan Morgan at right guard, and you start shuffling some of those things. So that's where I think this gets interesting, but hopefully, Aaron, fingers crossed, this gets resolved and we don't have to have another long-standing contract situation that's going on here.
I tell you what, the longer it goes, right? I thought, okay, there was a decent chance they try to get something done and or resolved by minicamp because he knew he was going to show up, and then he shows up and nothing's done, and he's just a spectator. I'm telling you, the closer we get to July 23rd and there is no resolution, the more I think it becomes likely that they trade him. Ooh. And I know Packers fans don't want to hear it, but I mean, if you're the Packers, you just said it. You don't want to set that precedent where, man, you signed the deal, and yes, the market moved and it left you behind, but that's the market, right? And I understand that you're upset that they signed Aaron Banks and he got all this money and he took your spot, right? And now they're asking you to move inside. I get it from Elton's standpoint, but from the team's point of view, I just can't see them budging. Like I just find it really kind of fascinating how this is going to unfold over the course of the next 3 weeks, because it's a flashpoint, right? I just don't see the Packers setting this precedent that they've held firm on with every player except for their quarterbacks. Like literally, Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers are the only 2 players in recent vintage in the modern era where they have made concessions when it comes to this kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a real mystery to me.
I'm not ready for. We're already hearing that the Packers aren't serious about building a contender. If they trade Elton, I'm not ready for the fallout from that
discourse.
I'm just gonna I'm gonna get ahead of that right now. I'm not ready for it. I might take an extra week in Spain if that ends up being the case.
I will say, what was fascinating to me is coming off of all that. And look, I've said it. I said it online. Like, I get there are plenty of Packers fans who feel that way, right? They're just complacent. They're satisfied with, winning games and getting to the playoffs, and they don't care. Well, of course they care, but they don't really go all out to win championships, right? And I think all of that is nonsense. But I will say, it is kind of fascinating to me under Brian Gutekunst's tutelage, under his watch, so to speak, how much premier talent they've allowed to walk out the door. I mean, starting from like very get-go when he released Jordy Nelson, like it was his first major kind of decision, right? And I get, yes, you want to get out early. You want to get a year early rather than a year too late. All of that. That's Ted Thompson did it, right? Like he released Charles Woodson, for God's sake, who went on to have a couple really good years back with the Raiders, right? Totally get it. The thing with Ted, though, is Ted was replacing a lot of that top-end talent. And I understand he just signed Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney, big hits in free agency. But, man, does Brian desperately need some of his guys, some of these draft picks to start hitting and becoming these elite players. And I think Jordan Love is on the cusp there. I think we've seen that. I think Edgerrin Cooper has a real good chance to be a star in this league. Like, there's potential there. But you can't keep bleeding top-end talent as a program and then just never replace it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be one for one positionally.
Yep.
But, man, you need blue-chip players. You need stars. And this is a year where a lot of this potential, and we've talked about it a lot over the last couple seasons, right? Because youngest team in the league, and they've made the playoffs, and it's been exciting. But, man, they need this potential to start becoming production and star premier talent type players. That has to happen this season.
In a way, it's sort of an interesting juxtaposition to what's happening in the NBA with the Oklahoma City Thunder right now, where they had all this young talent.
Excellent.
And it was an opportunity for them to gel together and be on this. But you needed guys like Jay Will, or I forget if it's Jay Will or Jay Dub. There's one of each, but the good Jalen Williams and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and some of those guys to really Chet Holmgren to take that next step into stardom, superstardom. Right? Exactly. Yes. So that needs to happen if you want to take that jump into a legitimate contender. And for the Packers, guys like Jordan Love, Edgerrin Cooper, we can go on, but the young stars on this team have to take that jump if you want to take that jump into a contender. And I'm with you. I think it's a really interesting conversation with Goody, where he, I think, has been one of the best in the league at finding good players everywhere via 7th round trade with Malik
No matter
Willis,
where
finding
it is,
Rasul
how it
Douglas off
is.
of a
Yes.
practice squad, Keyshawn Nixon for a vet minimum $0 signing bonus signing when they got him initially. Devondre Campbell, a 1 year, $3 million when he had an all pro season that first year. Like, he can find good players almost anywhere, 7th round picks, like all of it. It's remarkable what he can do. But finding those upper echelon players. Now, he did it last year in free agency in a big way with Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, as you mentioned. But from a draft standpoint, from a draft and develop standpoint, finding that next group of stars that are going to lead a team to a potential Super Bowl has been a problem for him so far. And like you said, this, I think, is a huge season to see if some of those players can step into that stardom role and hopefully, again, get Green Bay where they want to go.
And it's incumbent upon the coaching staff too. That's the other component here, right? And I do think they've done a phenomenal job, the coaching staff, as far as being handed the youngest roster in the league 2 years running, right? They've made the playoffs both seasons, but that's not enough, and you got to get better. Well, and look, the quintessential example on this team, as far as, okay, we need guys to kind of blossom, right, is when it comes to rushing the passer. Whether it's Devontae Wyatt finally coming into his own, which I think if he can stay on the field, he was just injured way too much last year. Yeah. But if he can stay on the field, you saw the glimpses, right? You saw that talent kind of emerging last year, especially in athlete scheme. But, Corey Banky, forgive me because I'm going to mention it. Lucas Van Ness is just sitting there like this big elephant in the room that, man, look, I get it. He was playing with an injured hand and his confidence maybe took a hit and all this stuff. Man, none of that matters between the white lines. Yep. And everyone's going to judge you because you were the 13th overall pick 3 years ago. You've got to start seeing some payoff from that potential. But I'm also excited about the guys they took day 3 in the draft. I think there's talent there.
Yep.
But as far as like getting to the passer, causing that disruption, to me, that still is the number one question mark on this football team. Like, I think they're going to move the ball on offense. I think they're going to score points. I think they're going to take the ball away. I think they're going to do good things on the back end. And I'm not concerned about the cornerback position like seemingly everyone else. But to me, it all comes back to, can they rush the passer? Can they rush the passer with 4? I don't know, Andy. That to me, and what's frustrating is I don't even think training camp is going to tell us this.
Nope.
Because last year, they looked phenomenal in camp.
Did.
They looked so good in camp. And then the week 1 came along and they couldn't do anything. So, yeah, to me, like, there's zero doubt that remains the biggest question mark for the Green Bay Packers heading into 2025.
We are in lockstep. I know the buzz lately in social media has been, is LVN the next Jamal Reynolds? There have been a few first-round defensive ends in Green Bay, Jamal Reynolds, Nick Perry, and Rashawn Gary, that I think sort of come to mind here. And I think we're about to learn which one of those paths LVN is on. Is he just a complete bust? It doesn't work out at all in the Jamal Reynolds category? Is he like, hey, this is a good, solid defensive end who's never going to be your top guy, but he can get you 8 sacks a year. It's going to have like a nice 6-7 year career like a Nick Perry did. That's probably going to be the best.
Play with a club on his hand for half of it.
Same hand injuries, right? Is that, or is he going to have the year 3 breakout like Rashawn Gary did after 2 pretty nondescript years and then have more of that breakout in year 3? So I think that's what we're going to kind of learn is which pathway is he on? And hopefully it's not the first one with the Jamal Reynolds one. I do think no matter what gets lost with LVN is that he is a solid, 4th edge rusher on any team in the NFL. Like, he is a good rotational player. It's just not what you drafted him for. No. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that I think is the differentiator there is, again, he's good enough to be that 4th or 5th guy in all 32 teams in the NFL. But what you want, of course, is impact, sacks, pressures. He had 20 pressures last year per PFF. Like that to me needs to at least double this year. Like, I need to see him in the 40s at least from a pressure standpoint. So that's what I'm looking at for LVN this year.
One thing with that is, you got to be on the field to put up numbers, and he wasn't on the field last year. Like, he was getting lapped by Brenton Cox Jr. And I will say, judging from what I've followed with you and the other guys on the beat, as far as where he's been lining up and how much and with who, feels like he's the number 1 guy opposite Rashawn Gary in a way that he wasn't last year.
Correct.
So that should help at least get him on the field. Like, that seems to be the biggest challenge. So that will be interesting to track. One thing I wanted to ask you about regarding the offense is something I posed on Packer Transplants yesterday, but Corey Banky doesn't care about scheme. He just wants the vibes and to win, and that's about the length of it. Do you think this is finally the year we see the mythical more 2 tight end sets come to fruition? Because I understand some of it, probably a lot of it, is Musgrave actually staying healthy and
Yep.
being available. But even when that has occurred and he has been available, it's not like they've run a ton of it. And I think it is kind of where the league is headed. You've seen other teams kind of leaning into it. Do you think the Packers head that direction?
Like you said, it's been much talked about and not much delivered upon. I think so is my saying, but like it also seems like we get to this point of like yes, more 2 tight end sets, and then all of a sudden we look out there and it's a lot of 11. But I do really think so. And the one thing I will say, and again, OTAs, mini camps, whatever caveat you want to throw at it, I do think Musgrave has looked really good so far. And more specifically, we know that Musgrave at times the stumbling thing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks like he's almost we know he's fast, but it looks like he's even trying to go faster than what he is. And it just looks like, again, he's got that little like baby giraffe legs thing going, or like they like, I feel like I've said in the past, I think he almost just needs to slow down to be fast. And that to me is what I've seen so far from Musgrave in OTAs and minicamp so far. He looks much more comfortable, just calm and collected, just like the game has slowed down for him a little bit. And with that, now you're seeing that true natural speed just kind of come to fruition. Had a couple nice seam passes and just some throws that we haven't exactly seen the Packers connect on with Musgrave in the past. That I saw in OTAs and mini camps, and it just looked like he was much more natural, calm on the ball, etc. So I'm hoping that if he can stay healthy, and if we're starting to see that raw natural talent come out a little bit more, not going too quick and not hurrying, but just being fast, that would give me a lot of just I think hopefully proof of concept that what we can hope for with this 2 tight end set is actually something that can come to fruition. I've liked what I've seen so far. I'm hopeful we see it, but I think a lot of it is going to be up to Luke Musgrave in that situation.
It's a big component that they really haven't utilized or unlocked. And I really think they can take advantage of defenses with it. Just playing around with personnel, right? As far as what defensive coordinators are expecting. You're in the huddle with they've got 2 tights, and then all of a sudden you come out and you're spreading them around, or you're kind of utilizing it even as a move tight end at times. I think there's a lot they could do with that, and I'm hoping this is the year.
If you think about it logically, right? And again, it's never quite this simplistic, but with Musgrave on the field, he's never going to be an impact blocker, but he's a solid get in the way blocker, and like he does his job for the most part in those situations.
He doesn't throw guys out of the club, but he gets in the way.
But he can get in the way and kind of get you what you need. And if they come out in like a regular nickel package, right, and they're in 5 defensive backs, especially with some of the wide receivers that Green Bay has as blockers, and that big beef now up front on the offensive line with Josh Jacobs, you feel really, really good running into those looks in that situation. But if they come out in like a base defense in that situation because they don't want you to run on them, now Luke Musgrave is basically a 3rd wide receiver in that situation. You're basically an 11, and now you've got an 11 personnel going against the base defense, and you feel really good about that as well. So you have the ability to dictate in a really fun way if you can get that formation working for you. I do think it has the ability to unlock some things. We heard that from Steno in the offseason as well. So I'm with you. Hopefully that does actually come to pass this year.
Can't wait to be out at Ray Nitschke Field, tweeting away with you, Andy, the master. Man, I don't know how you do it. Like the whole kind of thing you do, the recap of the 2-minute drive, like you're just like, I can't, man. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things that has guided me in everything that I do with covering the Packers is literally just being like, what would I want to know? If I was sitting at home on Twitter, what would I want to know? What's going on? And I just try to kind of be the eyes and ears as much as I can for everything that's going on. Of course, I can't get to everything, but I know if I've been there, right? I've been there watching everyone else tweet stuff out and just wanting as many updates as I can so I could satiate my thirst with stuff. So my goal, my job is just to try to quench that thirst for everyone as much as I possibly can.
See, and I just sit there and try and give a vibe. Like this is the vibe of camp. That's my purpose.
That's
where I've slid into.
I will say, Aaron, with age, it does come a little bit there for the first time over the last couple of years. Like there was some mini camp time where in the past, like mini camp, I was just like a kid in the candy store. Right. Anything that's happening, I'm like, it could be like the random dumb special teams drill. And I'm just like, ooh, I'm so excited. And now there's definitely points in mini camp, etc. I'm just like, oh my God, can we just get to the next period? And just something a little bit more.
Welcome, Andy. Welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm getting a lot of it. I love it. No, you're invaluable. Boots on the ground. Absolutely appreciate it. I will see you in about a month. Can't wait. In the meantime, enjoy your off season. I know you're off to far-flung locales. I hope you have a great time, and I will see you at Ray Nitschke Field in late July.
Can't wait. Thanks so much, man.